Hi there, I'm Chris. Let's talk about patient lifts and what those might cost you. So we're going to talk about 4 different types of lifts today. Overhead ceiling mounted lifts, gantry style lifts, orbital style lifts, and then floor lifts, sometimes called Hoyer lifts. And a little note on that, Hoyer is actually just a brand name, kind of like Kleenex is to tissues or Xerox is to copiers. So think of it as a floor lift, a Hoyer lift, kind of interchangeable. First, let's talk about my fave, ceiling lifts. And why is it my favorite? Because they're just out of the way. They run on a track along the ceiling, they take up no floor space, and they're very, very practical for moving a patient off of a bed into a wheelchair or a mobility device, and sometimes even off of a bed into another room. Now, because they're so versatile though, and because they're out of the way and they mount into the ceiling, the cost is a little higher. So you can expect to pay a range here at minimum between $4,000 and $8,000 depending on the model you get and how much track and how much structure modification is needed to get that mounted into your home. Now for the bigger room-to-room projects that I just mentioned, if say you wanted to go from a bedroom to a bathroom or a living area, you can expect that cost to be more because you're going to have to modify probably door headers and things like that. And that cost is probably going to be at minimum $12,000 and then upward from there, depending on what you choose. Next, let's talk about gantry lifts. And gantry lifts operate a lot like overhead ceiling lifts do. The difference is they don't mount to the ceiling. Instead, you have a support on either side of the bed and the track runs between those two supports. There are some models that offer 4 supports and more versatility about how you move that patient around the bed. But for the one I'm showing you on the screen now, that's a traditional gantry style lift. And you can expect to pay in the range between $2,000 and $6,000 for that lift, depending on, again, the model you choose and any labor that goes into getting them to your home. But it is very much less labor intensive than a ceiling mounted lift. For orbital style lifts, in other words, it's a lift that's got a post and an arm that orbits around that post, they're stationary, you can expect to pay between $3,000 and $5,000, again, depending on the model. Last, let's talk about floor lifts. And again, sometimes people call them Hoyer lifts. Like I mentioned before, that's just a brand name. Floor lifts is what they're technically called. And there are some drawbacks to floor lifts. They're not my favorite, but sometimes they are necessary. So before you make your decision, if you want to look up more about what those drawbacks might be, I have written a blog about the types of lifts and their pros and cons, and it is on our website. Feel free to check that out. But if you decide that a floor lift is what you need, you can expect to pay between $400 and $900 on the lift if it's a manual option. And if it's a powered option, you're looking at more like $3,000. That's all I have for today. Now, I realize I gave a bunch of ranges here, and that's really because there's so many models of lifts out there and so many different situations, it's really tough to hone in on exact pricing in a video. So best thing to do if you're interested in moving forward is give our office a call. They love educating people on all things home accessibility, and they'd be happy to get a quote together for you depending on your specific situation. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.